Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. Xia Chengqiu took a step backward instinctively as he said in a hoarse voice, "The 5 first seats are all coming." Zhu Xian reeled back and crashed on the ground after he was burned. Several disciples rushed over to support him. Lu Zhou ignored the 5 first seats who were hurrying over. Apart from Sikong Beichen, no one could do anything to him. He did not have to use the deadly strike cards against them as well. Lu Zhou looked at the square box in his palm. Square box. Desolate grade. Master Zhu Xian. Can be used after refining. Lu Zhou pocketed it. Zhu Xian seemed frightened when he saw this. The pain from the burn on his left leg seemed to finally register as he asked, It's really karmic fire." The disciples of the 9th temple were in an uproar. Karmic fire? Xia Chengqiu and Tian Buji heard their discussions and were shocked. The exchange merely lasted for an instant. The old senior had raised his palm, collected the square box, and sent Zhu Xian flying. Everything happened too quickly, they did not see any karmic fire at all. Lu Zhou stroked his beard while he looked at the figures flying toward him. Shortly after, the 5 first seats hovered in the air and looked down at Lu Zhou. Zhu Xian bit back the pain from the burn on his left leg and said, "Greetings, first seats. Are you all right?" Zhu Xian seemed to be in pain. However, he could not admit that he was not fine. He was a 9-leaf cultivator, and he was aiming to become a first seat. He could not bear the shame. "I'm all right." The 5 old men descended. Lu Zhou glanced at the 5 hall masters. He wondered if fighting 5 opponents at the same time would be too much for him. However, if he used his deadly strike cards, he could take 2 of them out. With his extraordinary power and karmic fire, he was confident of subduing 3 of them. There was no reason to worry. The 5 old men had lived very long lives. Their judgment was good. They could tell the old man was not easy to deal with. Moreover, he easily defeated Zhu Xian, who possessed a great treasure. How could he be a weakling? Peace Halls Yao Qingchuan. Truce Halls Zhao Jianghe. Unending Halls Sun Wen Chang. Prisoner Dragon Halls Wang Yu Dao. Mystery Halls Zhao Shaoqing. The 5 old men announced their names. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and nodded. These 5 old men are smarter than Zhu Xian and Kong Lu. Indeed, dealing with dumb men was not as comfortable as dealing with intelligent people. Although these 5 old men were powerful enough, Lu Zhou would not abandon his plan. He was determined to deal with their king. "Where's Sikong Beichen?" Lu Zhou placed one hand on his back and stroked his beard with the other. Xia Chengqiu and Tian Buji. In the beginning, the duo from the Thousand Willow Monastery had thought Lu Zhou was trying to act cool. They had also bragged about their strength in private before. It was just that they did not dare to repeat those words in public. They really did not expect Lu Zhou to mention Sikong Beichen in front of the 5 first seats of the 9th temple. Is he truly unparalleled? The Mystery Hall's first seat, Zhang Shaoqing, said, "Old mister, you have a wonderful cultivation base. If you're a friend, the 9th temple welcomes you with open arms. The temple master isn't feeling well and spends most of his time recuperating. I'm afraid that he won't be able to meet you." Lu Zhou continued stroking his beard. He said with a hint of disappointment, "I thought 5 of you are smart." "Old mister. What business do you have in the 9th temple?" 9th temple had been waning in recent times. They had to be extra careful about any attempts by the Sky Martial Court and the palace to chip at their strength. At this moment, Zhu Xian bowed and said, "First seat Zhang, that you Zhenghai is this senior's first disciple." Upon hearing these words, the 5 first seats frowned slightly. They had heard about Yu Zhenghai. However, they had entrusted that matter to Zhu Xian and did not care to ask for details. All they knew was Yu Zhenghai came from the Golden Lotus domain, and this matter now was important. "Are you from the Golden Lotus domain, old mister?" Zhang Shaoqing asked. They had to be clear about this. This was a crucial question. Lu Zhou did not answer Zhang Shaoqing. He merely shook his head and said, "The ninth temple is so vast. Is there no one with brains here? I'm the Evil Sky Pavilion's master, the first nine-leaf cultivator in Great Yen. Why should I answer you? Don't you think my pride matters as well?" The five of them felt that Lu Zhou's imposing air was rather difficult to describe. At this moment, Lu Zhou made a shocking move. He stomped his foot on the ground and flew toward the 5 first seats. Xia Chengqiu, Tian Buji, Zhu Xian and Kong Lu's expressions were similar. They looked at the flying Lu Zhou in shock. He's out of his mind. He must be crazy. The 5 first seats spread out and raised their right hands in unison. Instead of retreating, they advanced. Yao Qingchuan, Zhao Jianghe, and Sun Wencheng summoned their avatars. 3 150-foot avatars illuminated the entire place. The bright red lotuses were like 3 dazzling suns that hung high in the sky. On the other hand, Wang Yudao and Zhang Shaoqing unleashed their grand techniques. 5 of them surrounded Lu Zhou. This was what both parties wanted. Lu Zhou seemed to have expected this. He used one of his trump cards. To gain the power to silence everything, to maintain and manifest samadhi. Like light and shadow, permeating everywhere while staying still in samadhi. This was the power to silence everything. This was the second power Lu Zhou obtained after meditating on the heavenly writing scrolls. A blue lotus bloomed under his feet as his body shone with a blue light. Lu Zhou was bold and decisive as he used half of his extraordinary power. A blue lotus. Xia Chengqiu and Tian Buji exclaimed in hoarse voices. The disciples of the ninth temple widened their eyes as they looked at the blossoming blue lotus. They had expected a golden lotus, but they were treated to the sight of a blue lotus instead. This was a color they had never heard of or seen before. Before Yu Shangrong came to the red lotus domain, he was like the other great Yen cultivators who thought his master's blue lotus was from the barrier's power. Everyone had assumed the color of the barrier changed the color of his master's lotus, just like how the fiend Zen would taint one's avatar black. At this moment, the blue lotus was beyond everyone's comprehension. Realization suddenly dawned on Yu Shangrong. This must be the reason why his master was so powerful. From the beginning, his master was a cultivator who was much stronger than those from the Golden Lotus domain and the Red Lotus domain. Kong hugged little Yuan's arm as she looked up and said, "Senior sister, that's beautiful. I've never seen it before." Little Yuan said, "I'm almost sick of it. However, it's only natural that it's beautiful since it's from master." When the blue lotus was fully bloomed, a wave of energy shot downward. Zhu Xian's knees buckled, and he fell to his knees. Sweat was dripping down his face. Blue lotus and karmic fire? The 5 first seats were also shocked by the blue lotus. They had never seen such a lotus or such a battle style before. Their red energies and avatars were pushed back by the blue lotus. Bam! 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 All 5 first seats reeled back. They grunted in pain as their blood essences boiled. They stopped short of spitting out blood, the blood was caught in their throat. Alas, the weakest among them, the 9-leaf Zhang Shaoqing, could not endure it and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blue lotus faded away. Lu Zhou hovered in the center and looked at the 5 first seats in satisfaction. It has been a long time since I used this power. Its impact is still something to be feared. Usually, I can kill an 8-leaf cultivator instantly with half of my extraordinary power. It's natural that these 5 are only injured with half of my extraordinary power. Lu Zhou seemed nonchalant and as steady as Mount Tai. The others fell silent. The 5 old men wore a grim expression on their faces as they looked at the old men in confusion. After a long pause, the Mystery Hall's first seat, Zhang Shaoqing, called out, "Men." "Yes, Hall Master. Invite the Temple Master here. Quickly." Understood. The disciple flew toward the central part of the 9th temple on his sword. the 5 of them were completely subdued. At this moment, something unexpected happened. A guard flew over and announced in the air, "This is bad. The great general of the north is here." The 5 first seats were already in a tight spot after being subdued by Zhou. The appearance of the great general of the north changed their expressions drastically. Great general of the north? Zhou turned around. This sounded like a title someone from the palace would have. He recalled what he had heard when he used the power of hearing back at the Thousand Willow Monastery. A majestic voice rang from the tallest building in the center. "Get in, everyone." The 5 first seats turned submissive immediately. They bowed at the central building. Understood. The owner of the voice was none other than the 10-leaf Sikong Baichen. Xiaochengqiu was the first one to lose control. He staggered and nearly lost his footing. Fortunately, Tian Buji caught him in time. "Elder Tian. Am I dreaming, 2 10-leaf cultivators? We're doomed." When Xiaochengqiu and Tian Buji were still in the Thousand Willow Monastery, they were convinced that Sikong Baichen would not meet them. The 5 first seats would only have a brief sparring session with the old senior, at most, to understand more about him. With the 9th Temple's current situation, there was a high possibility they were trying to gain allies. At the very least, the 9th Temple would prefer to coexist in peace than make new enemies without due cause. However, this was awkward. 2 10-leaf cultivators had appeared in succession. This exceeded Xiaochengqiu's expectations. It seemed to have exceeded the expectations of the other members of the 9th Temple as well. Why was the great general of the north here? Xiaochengqiu gulped. He forced himself to calm down as he looked at the old senior whose expression remained calm. This was the old man who sent the 5 first seats reeling back on his own and with a single strike. He wondered if the old senior would suddenly turn around and flee. If that happened, those who were left behind would not live to see another day. Zhou looked ahead calmly. Xiaochengqiu was shocked by Zhou's composure, but at the same time, he was relieved as well. Perhaps, the old senior still has some tricks up his sleeve? Zhou hovered in midair and waited for the appearance of the so-called great general of the north. Who would not want to have a glimpse of such an elite? Little Yuan and Conk ran up to Yuan'er as they looked at their master and second senior brother curiously. Yuan'er maintained his attitude as a senior. He looked at them and smiled at them warmly and gently as he said, "There's no need to be afraid. I'll protect both of you." Zhou was relieved that Yuan'er was willing to protect his junior sisters. This way, he would not be distracted, trying to keep them safe. The 5 first seats of the 9th Temple rose higher in the air. In the distant northern sky, a winged warhorse pulled a flying chariot as it trotted over. 2 armored knights flanked the flying chariot. It was a majestic entrance. Here they come. The Mystery Hall's first seat, Zhang Shaoqing, was slightly shocked. Kong Lu was heavily injured. He was still shaking as he tried to rise to his feet. He said, "I'll go and meet them." The disciples of the 9th Temple glanced at Kong Lu. What can he do in this state? The Peace Hall's first seat, Yao Qingchuan, said, "The Temple Master has invited you over. 4 of you, go. I'll deal with the general." The other 4 first seats nodded. Yao Qingchuan flew north. Then, 100 disciples rose on their swords and followed him to make it look grander. Zhao Shaoqing turned to look at Zhou. Fear still lingered in his heart from their exchange earlier. He cupped his fists together and said, "You wanted to meet the temple master. Follow me." The other 3 first seats moved to the side and made an inviting gesture. Zhou kept his eyes trained in the north direction. He was in no hurry to meet this great general of the north. He was sure they would meet soon enough. Hence, he waved at Yuan'er and the others. "Follow me." Understood. Xiaochengqiu and Tian Buji were slightly nervous as they followed the others. Yuan'er looked at little Yuan and Conk before flying over as well. The central structure in the 9th Temple was a platform and the main hall. However, Sikong Baichen was not in the main hall. He lived deep in the 9th Holy Palace in the east. It was an area of its own. It was also the only building in the entire place that had 9 stories. The other halls occupied by the first seats were lower. On the 9th floor of the Holy Palace, Zhao Jianghe, Sun Wancheng, Wang Yudao, and Zhang Shaoqing flew in and landed in front of the Holy Palace. "Senior, this way." Zhao Jianghe made an inviting gesture. Lu Zhou walked on air. He stroked his beard as he surveyed his surroundings. He was inwardly in awe when he saw the majestic place and the 9-story Holy Palace. The others hurried over. At this moment, a veiled woman sauntered out of the Holy Palace. She stood before them and bowed. "The temple master is inside. Follow me." Yao Qingchuan did not move. Instead, he maintained his inviting gesture and allowed Lu Zhou to go before himself. Lu Zhou entered the Holy Palace followed by the 4 first seats. When Yu Shangrong and the others wanted to follow them in, the veiled woman raised a hand and said, "Unrelated people are not allowed to enter." "I'm sorry." Yu Shangrong lowered his head slightly and looked at the woman from the corners of his eyes. "Unrelated people? Let them all enter." A stern and gruff voice rang from the Holy Palace. "Understood." They walked down a long corridor with 2 rows of pillars. It hardly seemed like the 9th floor of a building. Even the palace was not built as majestically as the Holy Palace. Eventually, Lu Zhou saw a haggard old man, whose hair was as white as his own, seated on a chair. The old man's appearance was ordinary. He looked tired as he supported his forehead with one hand that was resting on the table. Lu Zhou stopped moving. Since he had transmigrated, this was the first person he met who was truly older than him. "I won't deceive him if he's honest with me." Birds of a feather flock together. Am I destined to meet old men wherever I go? At this moment, a rich voice rang from beyond the hall. "Make way for the great general of the north." The others looked outside. At this moment, Sikong Baichen finally lowered his hand and looked up. However, he did not look at Lu Zhou. Instead, he looked past him. A stocky armored man with a black cape slowly walked in. His eyes were spirited, and his face was wide. He carried a superior air about him. Chen Beizheng guarded the northern borders and had great military achievements. Then, the palace summoned him back. Now, he was a great figure inside the palace whom no one dared to take lightly. The Peace Hall's first seat, Yao Qingchuan, entered the Holy Palace with Chen Beizheng. The other first seats greeted Chen Beizheng at the same time. "Great General." Chen Beizheng looked at the 4 first seats but did not respond. He looked at Sikong Baichen before he stood unmoving, silently surveying his surroundings. After a while, he said, "Brother Baichen, it's been a while." Sikong Baichen shook his head and said, "What is the great general doing in the 9th temple instead of guarding the sky?" "I'm here on orders." Chen Beizheng made his way to the seat on the left and sat down unceremoniously. "I'm here on orders to capture the foreign tribesmen." "Foreign tribesmen?" The 5 first seats' expressions changed slightly. Sikong Baichen had not been involved with the 9th temple's affairs for a long time now, so he did not know what this meant. He said with a sigh, "I have guests today. You should come another day." In the entire 9th temple, Sikong Baichen was the only one who could speak to Chen Beizheng in this manner. "Guests?" At this moment, the others finally noticed the old man who was silently and calmly stroking his beard. Sikong Baichen nodded slightly. He waved his right arm and said, "Have a seat, my friend." Lu Zhou did not move. Instead, he regarded Sikong Baichen with a neutral expression. "You finally noticed me?" "There's no need for that. I'm merely here to take my disciple away." Lu Zhou stood unmoving like a mountain as he faced these 2 10-leaf cultivators. The 5 first seats were shocked. "This old man is so fierce and imposing?" They were shocked by Lu Zhou's composure when faced with their temple master and Chen Beizheng. This was not something that could be cultivated overnight. At this moment, they finally noticed the old man's heir was somewhat similar to their temple master. However, the old man was more mysterious. Xia Chengqiu and Tian Buji's knowledge and perception were frequently being refreshed and renewed in Lu Zhou's company. In the Thousand Willow Monastery, they could still give orders with a high and mighty air, but here, the two of them were nothing but ants. They shuddered. It was exceptionally quiet inside the holy palace. Sikong Beichen stared at Lu Zhou with a deep gaze, trying to gauge Lu Zhou's true strength. When their eyes met, he felt as though he was looking at the vortex in the deepest part of the endless ocean. He was slightly shocked by this. In all his years of living, he had never met someone like the old man in front of him. Meanwhile, Chen Beizheng enjoyed the refreshments brought by the female attendants as though everything was within his control. He was not in a hurry at all. Sikong Beichen calmly said, "My friend, did you subdue the 5 first seats on your own?" Lu Zhou did not answer the question. Instead, he said in a slightly demanding tone, "I don't like to beat around the bush. Bring Yu Zhenghai to me." The others exchanged a look. Yu Zhenghai? Sikong Beichen was puzzled. The mystery hall's first seat, Zhang Shaoqing, hastily walked over and whispered into Sikong Beichen's ear. Thud. Chen Beizheng placed his teacup on the table. He said that Yu Zhenghai is also one of the people whom I'm here to capture. Sikong Beichen had his own thoughts. He said, "General Chen, these friends are honored guests of the 9th Temple and not foreign tribesmen as you claimed. Please leave." The 5 first seats were shocked. They instantly understood the temple master's intention. As expected of the person with the highest authority in the 9th Temple. His vision, thoughts, choices, and decisions were made in a flash. Lu Zhou understood what was happening now. Before he knew it, he was caught in between the hammer and the anvil. The relationship between the palace and the 9th Temple seemed complicated. Chen Beizheng smiled and coldly said, "Zhu Xian battled 2 golden lotus cultivators at the Thousand Willow Monastery. There are many eyewitnesses. Brother Beichen, are you siding with the foreign tribesmen?" Sikong Beichen calmly replied, "I didn't see it." Chen Beizheng looked at Lu Zhou and said, "I can understand if you didn't see it, Brother Beichen, but the 5 first seats have just recently fought with that person. They should be very well aware." The first seats bowed and said in unison, "We've not seen any foreign tribesmen." Xia Chengqiu and Tian Buji. Are they all blatantly lying? Has the contest between the 2 factions escalated to this stage? Chen Beizheng looked at the first seats. He was slightly taken aback, but he was not entirely surprised. He said, all right. Rumors can't be trusted, and one has seen anything with their eyes. Show us your avatar to settle this matter." Lu Zhou continued stroking his beard and did not deign to look at Chen Beizheng. "Why should I show you my avatar just because you told me to?" The Peace Hall's first seat, Yao Qingchuan, shook his head and said, "General Qin, this is the 9th Temple's holy palace, not the royal palace or the northern borders. Nobody is allowed to act as they please here. If you want to see an avatar, you should go outside." Chen Beizheng smiled brightly. He raised the wine cup and downed it in one go. He slammed it down the table, shattering it into fine pieces. He slammed his palm on the table and said, "Bring him in." Chen Beizheng's 2 knights carried a person on a stretcher into the holy palace. Zhang Shaoqing was puzzled. The Blood Sun Temple's Huineng? Lu Zhou glanced at Huineng and shook his head slightly. Fa Hua is too soft. Huineng was heavily injured, but he could still speak. He struggled to get off the stretcher before he kneeled and said, "I can testify that this old man is a cultivator from the Golden Lotus domain. He killed Hui Ju and Hui Shang, and he also injured the abbot. He's a 9-leaf Golden Lotus cultivator. General Qin, I ask that you take this man down and do the Blood Sun Temple justice." Chen Beizheng nodded in satisfaction. He looked at Sikong Beichen and said, "Brother Beichen, don't stop me from taking my prisoner. Otherwise, not even you can protect the 9th Temple. The palace won't show any mercy when it comes to capturing the foreign tribesmen."